Be'ezras Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Avodah Zarah daf Chaf Hey 25, and we're going to start from Chaf Dalet Amud Beis uh, towards the last third of the daf, and the Gemara begins Vayisharna Haparis. The Gemara is just discussing a pasuk that was mentioned before, whereby the Orain was captured, was taken hostage, so to speak, by the Plishtim, and then this is the Aron that was in the base that was in the Mishkan Shiloh, and the Mishkan Shiloh was destroyed, and the Plishtim had a lot of problems uh, and sorrows because of the holding on to the Aron. So they ended up putting the Aron onto cows, and the cows made their way back to the Jewish people, miraculously. So the pasuk says, "Vayisharna haparis." The paris started to sing, "Baderech al derech beis shemesh," on the way of beis shemesh, going back to the Bnei Yisrael. So the paris, the cows, are starting to make their way back to the Jewish people. So this is in the beginning of Shmuel. My Vayisharna. What does it mean that the paris started to sing? You have to learn, like you had in this week's parsha. The animals started to talk, and they started to sing a song. Rav Zutya Batuvia Amarav. Rav Zutya says in the name of Rav that they did two things. Yishru Pnei Keneged Aron. They turned so that the cows are drawing a wagon with the Aron on the back of the cow. They turn their heads around to face the wagon. That means sheyishu pneim. They straighten their faces intentionally to face the back of the wagon, which was toward the back of the wagon, which the Aron was on the wagon. And the Amru Shira, at the same time, they said Shira. So the Gemara says, Ma Shira Amr, what kind of song did these cows sing? Amr Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Reb Meir, Oz Yashir Moshe V'nei Yisrael. They sang the song of Oz Yashir Moshe V'nei Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan Didei Amar, Rabbi Yochanan himself says, well, we say, and we start every morning in Shachris, this was a great ness that you should publicize amongst the nations. So they sang that song. Mizmar Yasma. They started to sing the Mizmar, the song the chapter of Tehillim that has no author to it, or we don't know exactly what it's referring to, because the pasuk says Mizmar. It doesn't say who wrote it. Shir Hashem Shir Chadash Knif Lois Asa Shir Yamina Israel Kachi. It's part of the Kabbalah Shabbos Tehillims that we say every Friday night. But that's the songs that the cows invented, and they started singing that song. Reb Lezer says Hashem Malach Yiguzwamin. They said that song, that chapter of Tehillim. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmenu Ama Hashem Malach Geus Lovesh. So though that chapter of Tehillim. So these chapters of Tehillim were invented and came from these cows that were carrying the Oren. Rabbi Yitzchak Napcha Amar, Rabbi Yitzchak Napacha says they didn't say any song. They said Roini Hashita, sing this piece of wood, which is the Oren was inside was made of wood. This Neifafu Baroif Hadresh Hamchushakas Berikme Azav. You come up with all your glory, those you are overlaid with golden embroidery. Hamhulala, that is exalted bidvir armain, with the dvir of the palace, which means it refers to that it has the luchos inside of it. Umufayara, and magnificent ba'de'adadim, with the jewels, because it also had the Sefer Torah. So it had the Torah inside of it, and that's the song that these cows sang. Rav Ashi Masnu Lahod Rabbi Yitzchak Ahar. Rabbi Ashi said that song, this statement, Roini Roini, Rabbi Ashi said it that Rabbi Yitzchak said it in another context. It says when the Jews traveled in the desert, the pasuk says, "Vayhi bin Soya Aram vayem Moshe Kuma Hashem." Moshe said, "Oh, get up, Hashem." That's those were the phrase that Moshe said. So that's how they traveled in this desert. Yisrael ma Amru. What did the Jews respond? Rabbi Yitzchak Roini Roini Hashita. Basically, a song to the to the Aron, and emphasizing that the specialty of the Aron, this what makes the Aron special, it has the luchos, it's the Sefer Torah. Zok the Gemara, Amarav, Kaman Kori Parsar L'Sifra Devir. According to what source do Persians call a book, Sifra is a book, Devir? Because the pasuk says V'Shem Devir, the name of the word Devir, Lefanim was Kiryat Sefer. So the old name of this place was Kiryat Sefer, now it's called Devir. And so we see that book is associated with the word Devir. I'll just say that in Shemoneh Esrei, when you say V'Hoshev es Avodah Lidvir Beisacha, we're actually referring to that God should return the service once again, that we'll have the service on Yom Kippur, where we could enter the Kodesh Kodashim, where the Dvir is, which is another name for the Aron, which held the Sefer Torah, which held the Luchas in there. So that's our prayer. V'Hoshev es Avodah, return back the service of Yom Kippur. Ravashi says, Kiman Kari Parsoy Nida. What's the source that Persians call a nida dashtana? Mahachik comes from this pasuk. Ki derech nashim li. Derech nashim, when you crush it together, derech nashim, where Rachel said to Lavan, don't make me get up for you because I just had a menstrual cycle. So derech nashim li. So that if you push it together, that becomes dashtana. So it became a Persian word, which has its source in the Torah. Now we go to top of Chafei Amud Aleph. The pasuk says, "Vayidam Hashem es v'yirech amad adikim goy oivev alehi ksuva al sefer Yasha." So we'll have the same names of Mechlekes Amoraim, the pshat in the pasuk. The pasuk says that Yeshua stopped the sun in the middle of the sky, and this was a reference in Sefer Yashar that Yeshua is going to perform such a great miracle. My Sefer Yashar. Where's it referenced in Sefer Yashar that Yeshua is going to perform this miracle of stopping the sun in the sky? It's in Sefer Bereshis, because Sefer Bereshis is called Sefer Hayashar. Zeh Sefer Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, which is Sefer Bereshis. Shenikru Yesharim, which is Sefer Bereshis is called the righteous ones, because it refers to our Avos Kedoshim. It's the story of our founding fathers. Shenema, because the pasuk says, Thomas Nafshi Moshe Sharim. It's in this past week's parsha, where Bilam said, I would rather die the way the Avram Yitzchak Yaakov died, in part of his brachos. So Sefer Yashar refers to Sefer Bereshis. And in Sefer Bereshis somewhere, it says that Yeshua is going to stop the sun. Where does it say that? It talks about the offspring of Shevet Ephraim, which Yeshua came from, and he's going to be so famous that all the Goyim are going to talk about him. How is that possible? When was Yeshua famous that all the Goyim in the entire universe and the entire world talked about Yeshua? He was so famous. When people saw that the sun held its place and did not move because of Yeshua. So that's how Yeshua became so famous. Then the pasuk says, "Vayamoid Hashemesh bechatzi hashemayim v'loyotz loyvoi kiyom tamim." The sun held its position and stopped, and it did not continue to go set like a entire day, like a normal day. It seems that it stopped twice. So the kama. So how long does this whole process take? I'm Rabbi Shua Balevi, the sun was out, Eser V'Abah, Shoi, 24 hours. Also, the sun rose 6 hours. Let's say it rose 6, it stopped, and it stopped at 12 o'clock. The Kamshis, then it stopped for 6 hours. Also, it went another 6 hours, the Kamshis, and then stopped for 6 hours. Kula Milsi Yom Tamim, the whole nays took a full day. Rab Laza says, Shloishim Vishish, the nays took 36 hours. Also, the Komtresa. Actually, it went for 6 hours, and then the sun stopped for 12 hours. Then the sun started to move for another 6 hours. The Komtres, and it started and it stopped for 12 hours. So Amidasa Kyam Tamen, the stopping of the sun was a whole day, 24 hours plus the movement of the sun, and you will get 36, 12 plus 24 plus 12. The whole story happened 48 hours. The sun rose for 6 hours and moved. The comes tracer and then stopped for 12 hours. Then it went for another 6 hours. The com Esron Ball, and it went for another 20. It stopped for 24 hours. By the setting, it didn't set like a normal day. So that means it stopped for 24 hours like a normal day, like a regular day. The first time it stopped, it didn't stop for an entire day, it probably stopped for 12 hours. So if you add 24 hours that it stopped, then it went for 6 hours, which is 30. 12 hours that it stopped, and then another 6, you'll get to the total of 48. So that is the machlokes of how long the story of the stopping of the sun happened in the time of Yeshua. Others have a different understanding. They're arguing how much B'Tosefta means how much additional. They're only talking about the addition, the stoppage, they're not counting the time that the sun was moving. They're just counting. The machlokes is all about how much time did the sun stop, not counting that it moved. It stopped for 24 hours. It went for 6 hours. The come trace and it stopped for 12. It went for 6 hours. The come trace and it stopped for 12. 12 plus 12 is 24. It stopped for an entire day. 24 hours, the sun didn't move. It stopped for 36 hours. It went for 6 hours, then stopped for 12. So the second time it stopped, it was actually a 24-hour period. And the first time it stopped, it was 12-hour period. So it's a 36-hour stop. It was a 48-hour stop. First it went for 6 hours, then for 24 hours it stopped. It went for another 6 hours, then it stopped for another 24. The way it stopped is the first time it stopped to the second time it stopped, and the second time to the first time. Ma biyase, when it first stopped, is kiyom tamin. It was a 24-hour stop. Afa midase, when it stopped, the second time is kiyom tamin, or the opposite. Just like the end was for 24 hours, the first time also was for 24 hours, because it says kiyom tamin at the end. So the end, it stopped for 24 hours. So the first time it stopped, it also stopped for 24 hours. So basically, in Yeshua's time, it's machlokes exactly how long it stopped, how long did the event take place. But definitely you should know that there was 2 times it stopped, not once, but twice. And it moved in between. Tana, we learned in the Brisa, Yeshua, just like the sun stopped for Yeshua ben Nun, so also the sun stood for Moshe Rabbeinu and for Nakdim ben Gurion. Nakdim ben Gurion was so the Gemara is going to say like this: Yeshua Kroy. We have a pasuk. The Yeshua's sun stopped because of Yeshua. Nakdim ben Gurion. The story of Nakdim ben Gurion, which is a great rich person who was a tzaddik, is a story in Machlokes in Masechta Tainis, where there the Gemara tells us that he stopped the sun. So Gemara, that's a tradition. There's no pasuk for that. It's just a tradition that we know that there was a human being named Nakdim ben Gurion who lived during the second base of Migdash, and he stopped the sun. Moshe ben Alon. How do you know Moshe Rabbeinu stopped the sun? We don't see it in the Chumash. Asya achel achel. We have a gzeir shava achel achel. Ksiv hachel achel teis pachtecha. It says by Moshe Rabbeinu achel teis pachtecha. Ksiv hasem Yeshua achel gadlecha. So just like Yeshua stopped the sun, so we're gonna the gzeir shava is going to tell us that Moshe Rabbeinu also had the sun. Rabbi Yochanan Amma asya teis teis. Ksiv hachel achel teis pachtecha. Ksiv Yeshua b'yom teis Hashem es hamayri. So actually, from the word teis that it says by Moshe to the word taste that it says by Yeshua, we have a Gzeir Shava that says that Moshe Rabbeinu also stopped the sun. Rabbi Shmuel ben, maybe it's talking about the story of Sichlin. Rabbi Shmuel ben Achmeni Omer Megufa the Kral Shamat Ashi Yishmer Shimacha v'Ragzu v'Chol Mepenecha Eimosai Ragzu v'Chol Mepenecha b'Shasha Amda Moshe Chama b'Shasha Amda Loi Chama l'Moshe. The pasuk says when Moshe Rabbeinu who fought Sichain and Og, They heard about Moshe, and all the nations of the world were frightened. When was that? Moshe Rabbeinu had also this event that he also stopped the sun. So the Gemara asks a question. Smeisvi, let me ask you a question. It says by Yeshua, there was nobody like Yeshua. This event never happened before. So how can you say that Nakdimin stopped the sun, Moshe Rabbeinu stopped the sun? The pasuk says in Sefer Yeshua that this never happened before, and it will never happen again. It never stopped for this long. You see, although Moshe Rabbeinu and Nakdim and Ben Gurion stopped the sun, but they didn't do it for such a long period of time, as Yeshua did. If you wanted to say, it's not talking about the sun being stopped. Other people stopped the sun, but Avnei Bored Loy Hava, they didn't have hailstorms that had happened in Yeshua's time. The Ksiva, he benusam b'nei b'nei Yisrael, hey b'moyer beis chayrin, Hashem, Hishlach, Aleim, Avonim, Gedoylus, Minashmaim, God threw upon them great stones from Shemaim, Adazako, Vayimusu, and they died. So we see that the what it's referring to, that they never had such a day, was referring to the great stones and the hailstones that came down in the time of Yeshua at that time. See if the pasuk says another drasha that we're going to have the same machlokes Reb Yochanan, Reb Lazar, Shmuel ben Achmeni. So Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, we learned before that Sefer HaYashar is considered Sefer Bereshis, but not everybody agrees to that. There's a pasuk that says, "Vayoyma lelamed bnei Yehuda keshes hine ksuv al Sefer HaYashar." When Shaul HaMelech and Yonasan were killed, David said, "We have to now teach the bnei Yehuda, the people of Yehuda, how to use a bow, an arrow, because we don't have the defenders anymore of Shaul and Yonasan." And this is already written al Sefer HaYashar. We already know that this was going to happen, that the Shevet Yehuda has to learn warfare. My Sefer HaYashar. What is called Sefer HaYashar? Amram Chivari Abram Yochanan. Zeh Sefer Avram Yisrael Yaakov Shnikri Yisharm Deksiv Behu Thomas Nafshi Moshe Shalom Ziyachrisi Kamoyin. So Sefer HaYashar is, whenever it says Sefer HaYashar, it's referring to Chumash Bereshis. The where in Sefer Bereshis do you see that Shevet Yehuda has to learn warfare? Because the pasuk says, Yehuda ati yaducha checha yadcha ba'arif evecha. Yehuda has to, his hand will be on the back of the neck of his enemies. How do you perform warfare where your hand is next to the back of your neck? That is the bow, because when you push the bow, it's right in front of you. It's facing the front of your neck, which is opposite the back of your neck, and you're shooting at somebody's back of his neck. So that's the bow and arrow. So we see from there that Shevet Yehuda had to learn warfare. From all the Shvatim, they had to be experts in war. Reb Lezer Omer Zeh Sefer Mishnah Torah. It's actually Sefer Yashar is Mishnah Torah, Sefer Devarim. V'amai korele Sefer Yashar. Why is it called Sefer Yashar? The Ksiv, the pasuk says, "V'asisa hayashar v'atoiv b'einei Hashem." That you should do the Yashar and the Toiv in the eyes of God. And that is written in Mishnah Torah, in Sefer Devarim. Where in Sefer Devarim does it say that Yehuda has to learn warfare? Yadav Rav Loi. He has to learn, his hands has to be strong. Which weapon do you need two hands to operate? Because it says Yadav. That's referring to a bow and arrow. One holds the arrow, one holds the bow. It's actually a pasuk of Sefer Shoftim. Now, why is Sefer Shoftim called Sefer HaYashar? The pasuk says, so everybody did what's Yashar. So that's why Sefer Shoftim is called Sefer HaYashar. Again, we have to find a source in Sefer HaYashar, in Sefer Shoftim, that's going to tell us that Yehuda is going to be the one doing war. He's going to have to learn how to perform war. They're going to have to train themselves in war. And what type of warfare needs training? That is the bow. That's a pasuk also in Sefer Shoftim. And how do you know that Yehuda is the one that's going to be trained in war? Nolan de Yehuda, the Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Mi yala lanu elaknani li lochem boy v'yayma Hashem Yehuda yala. There's also a pasuk in Shoftim that Yehuda should lead the charge in war. So in Sefer Shoftim, it already discusses that Yehuda is going to learn the strategies of war and the weapons of war, which is the bow. And this is what David HaMelech referred to, that once Yeshoel HaMelech and Yonasan got killed, now we have to teach the Bnei Yehuda were lost. Now they were really, we didn't need any people trained in war. We had Shaul and Yonasan. Now we're going to have to treat, David said, now we have to, in his eulogy on Shaul and Yonasan, he said, we're going to teach now the Bnei Yehuda how to use a bow. Now, another machlekes between Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar, and Shmuel ben Nachmani. The pasuk says, "Mi alalono elaknani." The pasuk says, "Vayaram hatabach as a shoik v'alev v'yasem l'fnei Shaul." So when Shaul met Shmuel for the first time, they sat down to eat. And he had somebody prepare an animal, a korban, which was brought on a private bama. And he brought as the menu the shoik, the thigh of the animal, and what's on top of that, the thigh. And that was the menu. My balel, what's on top of the thigh, what was on the menu? They ate the thigh and the tail. My balel, why is the tail called on top of the thigh? Because next to the thigh is the tail. Not exactly, but it's somewhat nearby, and the tail's on top of the thigh. Rabbi Lazar says, Sheik v'chaza. They actually ate the thigh and the breast. Normally, you give it to a kohen to eat. But since this korban was brought on a private mizbeach, so they ate it together. What does it mean that he ate? They brought the thigh and what's on top of it. The moches le'lechaza iloi v'deshoik ki boya anufe manfile. Normally, when you bring a korban, you have to a korban shlamim. The shoik v'chaza are actually lifted where the breast is on top of the shoik, and it's given as a gift to a kohen. So the chaza, in the carbona sense, is always considered, the breast is considered to be on top of the shoik. But here they didn't give it to a kohen; they ate it themselves. So that's what it says, that they brought to the meal that Shaul had with Shmuel the shoik, and va'aleha means the breast. They brought the thigh and the breast. Shmuel bar Nachmani, they brought shoik, the shoifi. The shoifi is the cap. Somehow there's some sort of part of the thigh, a little bit above it, that's called a shoifi, a cap. My va'aleha, shoifi eloi the shoik kai, because this cap of the thigh is sort of on top of the thigh. So that is the machlekes between Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar, and Shmuel. And so we'll continue with the new Gemara in a moment. The Gemara continues, ishi mohem. The Mishnah said that a Jewish woman should not be alone with a Goyish man. But my asking, what are we talking about? Just with one Goyish man. The Kvasa Gabi Yisrael Mishari, is a Jewish woman allowed to be with a regular Jew that's not her husband? But now we learned to the Mishnah that one man is not allowed to be with two women, even two women, and certainly with one woman. So how? Why do you have to teach me that a Jewish woman should not be alone with a goy? So we go on the base. Elabitlasa. If it's talking about three goyim, so three goyim, even with three goyim, one woman should not be. The Kvasig Abi Yisrael Beprusa Mishari, even three Jews that are steeped in immorality. Even three Jews, a regular Bas Yisrael, should not be alone with these people. But now we learned in the Mishnah, if there are two men, then yes, a one woman could be alone with two men because they're embarrassed of each other. But it's not an absolute rule. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, this was only taught by men that are moral people. If you have a Jew that's immoral, Even if there's 10 immoral Jewish men and there's one woman, she shouldn't be alone with them. Maisa, there was a story. Haya, Vahitziu, they took out a Zoina, prostitute, Asara, with 10 men, Bemita, in the bed, pretending she was dead. They brought her to the outside of the city, and they all were Mazana with her. So we see that if we're dealing with Prutzim, even a Jew, even one Bas Yisrael, should not be alone with a Poritz, somebody who's steeped in immorality. So certainly, even if there were 3 Goyim there, a Bas Yisrael should not be alone with 3 Goyim. Like Tzricha, we're talking about she's alone with one guy, but his wife is with him. V'ishta imoy, but his wife is with him. Goy ain't ishta mishmartoy. A goy, his wife is not going to protect him. His wife is not going to mind if he does nus with this Bas Yisrael. So he shouldn't be alone with a goy and his wife. But Israel, even a Jew who is not, let's say, he's a poritz, he's steeped in immorality. If he has his wife next to him, shamarta, she's going to oversee and watch that he does not be mezana with this woman. So the chiddush of the Mishnah is that a girl, a Bas Yisrael, could have yichud with a Jew and his wife, even if the Jew is a poritz, somebody who is steeped in immorality. But with a goy and his wife, not. Why? Because the goy doesn't mind, his wife of the goy will not protect her husband from being mizana with the Jewish girl, because she's also mizana. Says the Gemara. So you're telling me that that the whole problem of a Jew being with a goy is the Bas Yisrael should not be with the goy because it's a problem of aroyas. Says the Gemara, maybe he could kill her. We learned that a Jewish man should not be with a goyish man because he might kill him. So why wouldn't you be concerned about with a Jewish woman and a goyish man that he might just kill her? We're talking about a beautiful woman who's also very connected to the government. So we're talking about such a woman. He's not going to kill. He's afraid to kill her because if then he'll get arrested for that. So therefore, the only concern is arayas. That's the kind of Bas Yisrael we're talking about. Bas Yisrael that's connected to the government and pretty. Ravidi says, Isha klizena alam. Doesn't have to be talking about a pretty woman. Even if she's not a pretty woman, the fact is, a goy is not going to kill a woman that he's going to do znus with. A goy is not going to kill a woman that he's about to do znus with. That's what Ravidi says. So the only problem is znus. My benai, what would be the difference between the two? Between Rav Idi and Rav Yirmiyah, would see that a woman should not be alone with a goyish man. The following would be the difference. Isha chashuva. She's an important woman, bein hanoshim, she'ein chashuv bein hanoshim. She's a type of woman that's connected to the government, but she's not really a pretty woman. So according to Rav Yirmiyah, she's not a pretty woman. He's not going to be mizana with her. And because she's connected to the government, he's not going to kill her. According to Rav Yirmiyah, that such a type of woman could be alone with a goyish man. Avidi says no. Even any woman, this guy is going to do znus with. So there's no concern with a pretty woman, not pretty woman. He's always going to do znus with a Jewish woman, and therefore she should not, according to Ravidi, should not be alone with a goyish man. Tanya kavos Ravidi bar Oven, we have a brisa that supports Idi by Oven. He isha alpha pisha shalom ima loy tisyached imahem they shechashudin al rayis. No matter what, a woman should not be alone with the guy, even though she has nothing against the guy, and he probably has nothing against her. She should not be miyachid, should not be alone with a guy, because it doesn't matter if she's pretty, not pretty. They're always going to be mizana somehow with the Jewish woman. So she should never be alone with this man. We said a Jewish man should not be alone with a goyish man because he might kill him. Tanu Rabbanan, the Brisa taught. We learned in the Brisa. Yisrael shenizdam eloi goy b'derech. Let's say Yisrael is alone, and all of a sudden there's a guy on the road, and they're going in the same direction. So what do? He might kill him. So the advice is line up the guy on your right side. so that you could protect yourself. If he's on your right side, your right hand could block any type of attack. Rabbi Shmuel ben Oisham ben Yochanan ben Beroicha, he says, if the guy is holding a sword, you're right. Taifla Yamina, you put him on your right side because the guy wears his sword on his left side. So if it's on your right side, you can see if he's going to reach for his sword. B'makel, but if he's holding a stick, you line the guy on your left side because the stick the guy is going to hold in his right hand. So make sure he's on your left side so that he doesn't have a good shot on you. And you walk side by side with each other. But let's say they're going in a row. They're going down, they're going up or going down. Never have the Jew on the bottom and the guy on the top. The Jew has to be on top, the guy lamata, and the guy on the bottom. Obviously, because if the guy is on top and the Jew is in front of him, so the guy might kill him that way. So you have to protect yourself. Never bend down in front of a guy. Why? Shema Yaretz a school goal maybe he will crush your skull. If the Brisa says if a guy asks you where you're going, you should say I'm going much farther than you intend to go, because if he intends to kill you, he's going to procrastinate, and by the time you get to your destinations, he didn't kill you. You could say, "Oh, I'm stopping over here." And this idea was Kedera Sha'os Yaakov Avinu LeEsav Rasha. We find in the Chumash that Yaakov did the same idea to Esav. The Ksiv, because Yaakov told Esav, Adashi Ovay Aladini Seir. I'm also going to Seir, to a place called Seir. So let's go. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Yaakov Nachsasakoisa, but he only ended up going to a place Sukkos. He didn't go to Seir, but he told Esav he's going to Seir. So this is a remez that whenever a guy asks you where you're going, tell him you're going much further than you're going. And if he goes along with you, you'll reach your destination first, and then you'll be able to say, "Oh, I thought I was going further, but I'm going to stop over here." And in that way, you prevented the guy from killing you. Okay, this was the brisa to teach us how to protect yourself going alone with a guy.